Hello, good
Alrighty.
afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Commuters Live on Sheffield Live 93.2 FM. Chris Zanelli here, and we have Emiko Carlin. Good afternoon.
Oh, right. It is afternoon there, isn't it? Good afternoon.
I should say good morning over there as well, shouldn't I, really?
Yeah. Yes. It's very morning here. Yes.
So, for our listeners at home who is watching this, give us a bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started off in the music industry. I've been a lifelong recording artist and composer and producer, went on to own a couple of recording studios. I've been touring with various artists and toured with my own act, my own band, putting out albums, et cetera, et cetera. And then I very accidentally got into filmmaking without actually knowing that I had made a film. Uh, and now we're here, basically.
So, we've got you have a new short film called The Human Side. So, we aren't giving too much away. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the human side is the story of how hi-fi audio and an elevated listening experience can actually change human beings. And the story is it's a web of different people's relationships with each other, but also within the hi-fi community, and the impact that hi-fi has had on them. And some of the impacts are tremendous. There are folks that hi-fi saved their life. For example, one gentleman that we interviewed, who he talks about this in the film, so everybody's going to see it. Had a unfortunately a very dark issue with substance abuse, and he was very close to losing his life. And um, making a shift and changing his addictive patterns from something dark and counterproductive and unhealthy to then collecting hi-fi and memorabilia and getting into the audio community. It put him on a track to, it helped his marriage, it helped his family and his kids, and it's just put him in this great place. And so things like that, things like how an elevated listening experience with audio changes brain chemistry and body physiology, and how it's used in educational purposes, and it's used in therapeutic purposes and recovery, um, and then all the human stories that go along with that. People whose lives were changed the first time they heard a recording super clearly, and what that meant to them, and how that changed their perspective on a lot of things.
Yeah. That really did sound quite dark, but from a plot. But to say that there's going to be something positive at the end of it, that's that's a good sign, really. But I've got to ask, how long did the film actually come together? Was it quite quickly, or did it was it quite a long process to make?
Um, well, the film that's actually a really good question. The film came together very much by accident. So what had happened was I had gotten off my last national tour a few years ago, and then I was sort of at a loose end of things to do, because my next big project wasn't for a few months down the road.
Sure.
And a friend of mine called me and he said, "Hey, I'm working for this hi-fi audio trade show in Southern California called the Home Entertainment Show. And they're looking for a video host. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Well, first of all, what the heck is a hi-fi audio trade show? What is that? Let's start there. Second of all, what do they need video for? If it's hi-fi audio, they're listening to, they're not looking at anything. What are you talking about?" And so he explained to me, he said, "Well, the Home Entertainment Show is North America's longest running hi-fi audio trade show. And like we have in the music industry, conferences and conventions where we go see the latest technology and studio gear and software and things like that. The hi-fi audio industry, for people, for audiophiles who love, really bespoke systems, stereo systems, have these trade shows, and they have them all over the world. And this one happens to be one of the, it is the longest running one in North America, and it's quite big. And they're doing some promo video stuff. Do you want to, take it or leave it? Do you want it? Do you want the gig or not? And I said, yeah, fine. So I went, not really knowing what to expect. Showed up with a camera crew and was going around from exhibitor to exhibitor, just, hi, what's your experience been so far? How do you like it? Generic questions.
Yeah.
And I had a break in between my schedule, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the lounge and sit down for a bit and sort of clear my head. And as I was walking, this gentleman I thought he was following me, which I thought was a little weird. So I peeled off and went into the lounge and sat down in a table in the corner. And this guy made a beeline for me, and he said, hi, can I talk to you? And I thought, no, I'm tired. I don't want to talk to anybody. But he sat down and he said to me, listen, I noticed you were interviewing people, and you're quite good at it. And two of my friends and I want to start a podcast. And one of my friends has this, he wants to tell the story of how hi-fi saved his life from addiction. And then another buddy of mine is a professional photographer, and he has many photo books out. He was one of the last people to photograph Jimi Hendrix alive. And I worked for a race car team, and then I started designing loudspeakers, and I started doing this and that and restoring tube amps. And, and so we all know each other through these different circumstances. And I said, oh my goodness, this is not a podcast. This has to be a video. Like, this has to be seen, right? It can't just be heard. It has to be seen, because there's too many things that need visual representation. And so we chatted about that. I didn't know what to do. He said, great, let's set up a call later, and we'll keep talking. I said, okay. And I sort of went about my day, but it kept, that phrase, my buddy was one of the last people to photograph Jimi Hendrix alive, just stuck with me, because it started to unravel in my head. And I thought, when they're gone, nobody else can ever have the claim, I photographed Jimi Hendrix, right? I mean, yes, Jimi Hendrix has passed, so nobody has that claim now anyway. Yeah. But meaning, once that group of people has moved on to another realm, nobody will exist that has that claim ever. And that weighed on me quite heavily, because as a musician especially, I thought, we are living in a world where things are changing by the second, right? We've Instagram and TikTok and social media and all these things. People are taking music and it's becoming background, right? You listen to music streaming while you're doing the dishes, you're driving somewhere, you're at the gym. It's not front and center as a focused discipline, as a focused way to relax, or as a focused way to connect. And so I went to the president of the show, who I had known for maybe a few weeks at that point, and I said to him, hey, listen, this guy, I don't know who he is, but he's a ticket holder, and he said, this wants to do a podcast. I think it's a video series. What do you think? And the president just looked at me and goes, yeah, let's do it. And it was that simple. And so we assembled the same crew that we had. And I said, okay, guys, we're going to do these interviews. I think it's going to be a web series. And so it started as a web series. And then when we started getting all of this footage, I sat down with our cinematographer and our editor, and I said, I think it's a shame we have like 6 or 7 episodes of the web series out. I said, it's a real shame to just stop when we have all this footage, and there's more coming up that we're shooting, and all of these things that have not been published yet, right? They haven't been put out there. I think this needs to be a documentary. And we all sort of thought, I don't know what we were thinking, to be honest. To be honest, I don't think we were thinking. We were like, this sounds like a great idea. Let's make a documentary. Okay. And we did. And that's how the human side came to be what it is that this is the conglomeration of all of these stories, these experiences, these different events that the home entertainment show has had, sort of communicating this message and being of service to the community and the industry in this way. And we've just been flies on the wall, very lucky enough to document this and to pick out the things that are the most relatable and the most touching. Because I think in the hi-fi world, especially, like, there's such a reputation where people use the music to show off their components and their systems, right?
Yeah.
They don't use their systems to showcase the music. It's sort of backwards in that respect. And so we said, well, most of the hi-fi videos and things that we've seen on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, they're very technical, they're very sterile, they're beautifully done, but
Yeah.
it's all about these loudspeakers push this amount of air, and this tube amp has these Russian vintage tubes from the 70s, and you're right, it's all very technical.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about, why did you get into this? Why does this connect you with other people in ways that other things can't? What is it that changed your life about this? And we thought, well, these are the stories that need to be told. Also going to hopefully get other folks involved, and let people feel like this is something that is so overlooked and underrated, and yet is so life-changing. And so many, I can't tell you the number of people that watch the film and then go to the home entertainment show, where they go to their local hi-fi dealer or vinyl shop or whatever, and they say, I want to hear hi-fi speakers, I want to hear something. And then they hear it, they go, I had no idea I had no clue music could sound like that. It's like, yeah, that's, there's a whole rediscovery. So that's how, I know that's a long story long, but that's how the film came to be. It just sort of happened very organically. And yes, it took a lot longer than we expected, but at the same time, we didn't know what to expect when we jumped from webisode to documentary. We didn't really say, oh, we're going to do it in 8 weeks. And we just sort of went, well, we're going to go till we're done. We'll know when we're done, I guess. And then we just kept going. And then one day we said, we have to be done. Otherwise, this will be a 5-hour epic. And believe me, we love hi-fi, but nobody wants to watch a 5-hour film. Nobody on anything. So we made it into what it is. And we do have a feature actually in production now, but the short being, I think it's 27 minutes or whatever, is really, it's a good chunky introduction into what this is all about.
I've got to say, thank you for sharing that with me, Emiko. I mean, we love long answers, so the longer the better. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
But I've got to ask, I mean, you were also into being a music producer and I forgot. I'm so sorry. And you're a composer as well.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I've got to ask, I mean, how did you get into that? What was your influences?
So music came first, and I grew up listening to, my parents were big classical music buffs, and I grew up playing classical music. I think most kids who get into music do. And one day I discovered Billy Joel, and I discovered the B-52s, and I discovered the Rolling Stones, and my life was forever changed. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And of course, my parents had a fit, because they were, our daughter's gonna go into, oh, we can't have that. She has to stay in classical music, because, and actually it turned out my parents were quite supportive. And so we gradually started making these changes and these shifts that would put me on the track to more popular music and things. And and that's where that started. Film composing sort of came about in a very bizarre way, because it started off originally as the songs that I had written on my albums, and the songs I'd written for other people, were being licensed to film and television. And then some of the music supervisors would come to me and say, well, hey, can you just write us like a custom thing for this section? Can you just do this? Right. And so I said, yeah, sure, I could do that. And I would do it. And then they would gradually, those sections got longer and longer and longer, until finally it became, hey, we have something we would like you to compose for. And I went, I don't know what that means, but okay. And then it was very organic in that way. And so that's how that whole thing started, was just sort of having enough material to be placed in enough places that people started taking notice, I think.
And I mean, we mentioned a few influences like Billy Joel, Rolling Stones, but if there was anybody that you could work with in the near future, I mean, new or old, dead or alive, if there was anybody that you could work with, who would it be and why?
Oof. Okay, I'll give you one. I'll give you three. There's so many. There's so many. Okay. Who is alive? Billy Joel. Goes without saying. Billy Joel. I mean, he just put out a new single. His producer, Freddie Wexler, is amazing. I love it. I think he's brought back something so Billy Joel-esque and yet so new at the same time. I had the great pleasure of actually recording with members of Billy's band.
Oh,
The
wow.
last member that's missing is Billy Joel, so I need to work with Billy Joel. So Billy, if you hear this, I'm just saying. What I wanted to do actually with Billy was something very specific, and so I make this plea and this invitation quite seriously. Billy Joel did a rendition, or excuse me, he did a song called Baby Grand, where he did a duet with the great Ray Charles. And I thought it would be cool to reimagine that with him. Not that I'm substituting for Ray Charles at all, but just to
Mhm.
say it's a duet style thing, right? He also did a song called Code of Silence with Cyndi Lauper, and I worked with Cyndi on some stuff. And so I thought that would be really cool. Some sort of something like that would be really neat to do. Or I could just sit in the room and say nothing and just watch him be magical. That's fine too. So Billy Joel for sure. I would very much enjoy working. Not, I don't know that I would enjoy it, but I would certainly want to talk to Wagner. Um, because I don't know, I would just want to sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea with him and say, "Hey, man, are you okay? like, do you need a hug? Are you okay? Let's talk about this for a minute." He was so uh, deeply affected by so many things, and just how emotional his compositions and his music were, and also how long everything is. It was very I don't know. I feel like it was equal parts therapeutic and equal parts self-aggrandizing for him. So I would be sorry. There's somebody's on fire or somebody's on the run outside. There's silence going on. I apologize. Um,
So,
so him, I would love to do something with Sarah Vaughan. I'm a big Sarah Vaughan fan, and I just thought she got a lot of credit, but I don't think she got nearly the credit that she really should have been due. And just her delivery and her passion and her commitment to all of the songs that she sang were just truly tremendous. And to be able to do something with her would be, I would probably be fumbling over the keyboard because I would be in such awe of her. But I really love her. And then I'm a big fan of Ellie Goulding and Jessie J. I would love to work with one of those, one or both of those two. I wish Jessie was bigger in the States. I really do. I think Americans need to know more about Jessie J. We
agree.
love Ellie Goulding over here, but I think more people need to know Jessie J because she's just out of this world. So yeah, those are probably the people that I would want to work with and also bring back and work with if at all possible.
I mean, so we talked about the human side, and if uh, if you can tell us, is there any upcoming projects that you're currently working on, or is it all secretive at the moment?
Oh no, it's not. It's all over the place. There's a number of projects that we have going on right now. At the moment, I am we're just rounding the corner to finishing principal photography for a really deeply personal documentary called Code Stroke, which is about young stroke survivors. I am a two-time stroke survivor myself and still have sort of longer term effects. And one of the things that people don't two of the things people don't realize is, number one, young strokes are on the rise. So we're finding teenagers, even kids, like
Shocking.
little elementary school age kids are having strokes. And most people, when you say somebody had a stroke, you think of grandma or grandpa, right? You think of
Mm.
great auntie or great uncle. You think, oh, that's a real shame, but they're 80 and they've had a good life, and oh, that's a shame. But it's older people have strokes, and that's not true. They're on the rise tremendously, and there's not enough discussion and information, and there's also not enough resources for younger people and for their families, because it affects I mean, we've interviewed doctors who have had kids that are college age, and all of a sudden they're not going to college anymore because they can't move one side of their body, they can't speak, they can't see properly, they can't swallow,
Yeah,
so young mothers that have had strokes, young fathers that have had strokes, it's a really critical conversation to have. As a matter of fact, Snoop Dogg's daughter, who's 24, just had a stroke a couple months ago. Um, and this is not because young people are doing anything, it's not because of drugs or alcohol or vaping, or it just, strokes are the great equalizer. If you're going to have one, you're going to have one. The end. Like, there's nothing that says, oh, you have to do this or not do that. Even healthy vegetarian people have strokes. I mean, it's not it's just something that happens. And so we felt like, my production partner Diane Musselman, who is she's been a speech pathologist with a focus in stroke recovery for over 29 years. We
yeah.
got together and said, this is something that has to be addressed immediately. So we're working on Code Stroke. We have another documentary called They Walk Among Us, which chronicles ordinary people doing extraordinary things that are sort of flying below the radar. We just think that people should get more credit than they get for the things that they're doing in their community. And while it may not be a documentary about war or hunger or scandal, it's, your neighbor could be saving lives. You could be saving lives, right? You could be impacting lives in a way that really deserves to be told and shown. So we wanted to do that. And then we're very excited. We have a narrative series, which is based on a detective mystery book series called A Corpse in the Choreo by a really acclaimed author named James Church, who's a former CIA operative. And he wrote this mystery series about his time in North Korea. And we were very honored to get the rights to make that into motion pictures. So we're getting started on that. That's going to be crazy and exciting, and that's going to be a long project because we have to take 6 or 7 books and make it into this series for broadcast. So that's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun though. And it's certainly going to open people's eyes to North Korea, and to how possibly how different it is than how the media represents North Korea as a country and the people. So it should be a lot of fun.
I want to say thank you for sharing me with the code stroke and all. I mean, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, and I'm so sorry to write that. But I would love to talk to you more about that at a later date, because we are quickly running out of
Sure.
time, so, unfortunately. But I've got a couple more questions for you. For anybody that's actually listening,
Sure.
for anybody that wants to break into this kind of industry, like the record industry, music industry, or the film industry, what advice would you give?
Mm-hmm. There's probably 3 pieces of advice that I would give. And forgive me for sounding esoteric, but these are 3 pieces that I live with and carry with me every day. So I
Okay.
know that they work. Number 1 is be really good at what you do. Take lessons, be realistic. So if you know you have a weakness in something, don't say, oh, they'll fix it in post. They can auto tune this. I'll get some. No, learn it, be good at it, right? You don't have to be the best, but you got to put your best effort forward no matter what, period.
Yeah.
Be quality, because people can tell if you're putting the work in, they're going to want to put the work in for you. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that everybody has advice. Not everybody is qualified to give advice, but they're going to give it to you anyway. So at that point, just remember, if somebody's giving you advice and you think it sounds weird, look at what their background is, look at what they've done. If it's useful advice and they're qualified to give it, take it into account, take it on board. And if it's, somebody who is not experienced and is just spouting off their opinion, just thank them, be gracious and then thank you so much. I appreciate that. And just sort of let it roll off. Don't internalize it. Don't get all, people waste a lot of time getting all twisted up about stuff like that. Just not everybody's qualified to give advice. Don't listen to the unqualified people, listen to the qualified people and be done. And the third thing, which is the most important thing that I only learned recently, like in the last few years, the record industry and the film industry are two industries in which you are meant to stand out. Stop trying to fit in. If something's already been done and you want to copycat it, you might have a sort of a quick rise a little bit, and it might help you get a little further. But the long game, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. I know because I spent years working with producers that were like, oh, you have brown hair and play piano. You should fit into this box because everybody fits into this box. That is not what I was meant to do. And in fact, all of my success came immediately when I left that box and went, I do this now. And people went, of course you do. This makes so much sense for you because this is what you do. And we have 900 people doing the other thing. We don't need 901 people doing it. Go off and do your thing. And where there is no place, you can make your place. And then people will want to follow you. And it's scary and it's hard to get people on board with you at first, but it is so worth it because then you can write your own ticket. And I just hope that to your listeners, like, do not give up. Just keep every day, just keep going with that in mind because you will make it. You will carve out a place for yourself. It will happen.
Thank you for that, Emiko. And my final, well, I've got two more questions for you, actually. So for our listeners at home who want to watch the human side, how can people get a copy? Can they, is it on digital platforms or is there any physical copies that people can get?
It's funny that you mentioned physical copies. We're looking into physical DVD production and Blu-ray production, but we are part of the Amazon Prime family, so you can find it on Amazon Prime for rent and for download there in standard and high definition, of course. I don't know. It hasn't hit there are other platforms it's going to, but I know right now we're really focused on pushing Amazon. So that's where I would go. You might be able to find it somewhere else on the internet because I know some people have tried to put it up on YouTube like illegally. And they're working hard to take those down. But if you can find it, I'm not saying go pirate it. What I'm saying is if you can find it, find it. But please head over to Amazon Prime and go check it out there for sure.
And my final question for you, Emiko, is for our listeners at home who was watching this, what would you like to say to our listeners?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. I do. I think everybody that tunes in to radio, web, TV, any sort of streaming series, anything that is local, regional, national, we need more of this. And so in that respect, I think if you are somebody that's supporting independent broadcast, if you are somebody that's supporting community broadcast, you are serving your community and your neighbors and your brothers and sisters and your friends. And I think that is so important. And so if you're a listener or a viewer, I want to say thank you. And I mean it because this is what makes the world go round and we need more of that. So thank you very much.
Emiko, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I really appreciate it.